So this video will have it all. We are going to be talking about a nuclear submarine that could cause a tsunami and it is a threat against major U.S. cities. We're also going to be talking about an international spying scandal with a former Marine CIA, as well as what Fox is calling the authoritarian axis, which of course is their response to the first ever meeting between Kim Jong-un and, of course, Russian President Vladimir Putin. Now, of course, a lot of people are having a lot of hopes for this, but there's a lot of important geopolitical news to go after and talk about. And I kind of wonder, why is everyone so obsessed with race and sex and gender and ideology and all this bullcrap when international politics is so much more fascinating, especially when it comes to these two world leaders meeting for the first time. Now, of course, we're getting a lot of news reports. Not a lot of them are specific, but allegedly Kim Jong-un has asked Russian President Vladimir Putin for help to deal with Donald Trump in order to reach a bigger peace deal. The major talks of discussion officially were about security guarantees for North Korea, with Russia saying that U.S. security guarantees may not be enough to persuade North Korea to end its nuclear program. Of course, Kim Jong-un again willingly said he's going to denuclearize if, of course, he has a security guarantee. But again, this summit was brief. There's not many specifics on what exactly happened. We could only speculate on all the other things that happened between these two world leaders. But Fox News came out in a glaring headline calling this meeting, quote, Putin building an authoritarian axis, saying that it's his latest move designed to damage U.S. power abroad. And of course, geopolitically, there has been a lot of things that we're going to get into a little bit. But before we get into all the other stuff we mentioned in the beginning, what do you make of this first ever meeting between the Kim and the Putin man himself?
Well, I think it shows that this regime is a lot different from the previous one. This guy is openly trying to work with an international audience to, I would say, westernize his nation in a lot of ways. This meeting, for instance, was only supposed to take place for about 50 minutes. And by all accounts, it was about twice that long. I don't think that it is beyond reproach that they should have some guarantees from an international audience before making alliances. And that's what he talked about with Putin. And Putin had relatively pleasant things to say about him afterwards. Again, that's not saying that I endorse everything that either of these guys are involved in, but I do like working towards diplomacy and seeing that whatever we had going with them, as in the United States, is falling apart. Let's be honest. You know, Pompeo doesn't seem to be able to do anything. They've actually requested that Pompeo no longer come and be the envoy there. Think about that. Trump said, he's moved away from peace with North Korea. I was encouraged when they were actually meeting face to face. But as we know, Luke, just before this last summit in Vietnam, well, the North Korean embassy was raided in Spain, and it had CI links written all over. We're going to get into that raid in detail in a little bit.
Yeah, this is an important story because I haven't seen anyone really talk about this story other than us and kind of WikiLeaks. I might be corrected, but I haven't seen anything else. And it's an important story that talks about what is happening kind of underground in this kind of bigger geopolitical shakeup that has led ultimately the United States and North Korea to sit away from each other at the table. And there's been a lot of spying. There's been a lot of espionage. According to many analysts, Trump made the right move last time he walked away from the table. We saw Kim Jong-un scrambling with his security guards running with his car the last time that Trump and Kim met. Now, of course, a lot of U.S. security experts are kind of anxious at what Putin is doing with Kim, but we have to understand here, Putin and Kim have had a relationship. Russia and North Korea have had a relationship for a very long time. A lot of essential needs for North Korea are being met by, of course, Russia. There's a lot of North Korean workers also working in Russia. So there's been an exchange geopolitically many times between these two countries. And now publicly they're saying that they're working towards peace. But obviously, geopolitically, the picture is a lot more complicated than just the public one that we get, which brings us to this next story that, of course, you just kind of alluded to a little bit. We covered a specific story about a break-in to the North Korean embassy in Spain. a break-in that was very, very suspicious, a break-in that targeted North Korean diplomatic efforts, stole documents and information. There was also, Jason, a very strange occurrence with the police coming there and leaving automatically off the bat. What many people are speculating was a CIA hit, and now we have new information that I want you to talk about, Jason, that kind of confirms a lot of the speculations that people have about this botched raid of the North Korean embassy in Spain.
So when you actually read the article, you kind of have to know the details that this has anything to do with the Central Intelligence Agency, because that's not the story here. The story is that the officials in Spain that investigated this raid, and we're going to show you some of the CCTV stills here, found that one of these guys was an ex-Marine living in the United States who's 38 years old. Now, not only is he an ex-Marine, but they're going to have him extradited in this case. Now, as far as we know, there's no mention of the Central Intelligence Agency or that he's working with intelligence agencies. But as you know, the Central Intelligence Agency, the NSA, and other organizations often use the Marines, the Army, the Navy as fronts for their agents, for their officers, for their assets. So he goes in, and this raid lasts hours, Luke. They have supposedly fake guns, but batons, machetes, they round everybody up. People are getting severe beatings. What are they there for? Well, they're there for thumb drives that may or may not contain nuclear secrets of North Korea. Remember, when that summit came about, Trump hinted that he had information that he did not believe the North Koreans knew that we had. And you have to assume, because of the timeline, it was due to these events. So let's continue on, all right? Like you said, the authorities actually show up there and knock on the door. Now, another individual, Hong Chang, actually had a pin on, dressed as one of the workers at the embassy, came to the front door and told them that nothing was going on and there was no commotion, and the police end up leaving. This literally plays out like a movie.
Yeah, they held the staff at hostage at what they thought was gunpoint. They had hostages. They were able to get away. They were luckily to get caught eventually.
They took an Uber, Luke.
Yeah.
The guy I just talked about, Hong Chang, I don't know that he was the leader of this, but again, they're not even mentioning the Central Intelligence Agency. He calls a Uber under the name Oswaldo Trump. You can't make this stuff up.
Wow.
And is part of the escape. Now, what's really interesting is the judge in this case is denying bond for Christopher Phillip and the Marine that is obviously somehow connected to this with the photographs here. It looks like he's going to get extradited to Spain. I don't know that we're going to know much about this story. You know why, Luke? This is from the Daily Friggin' Mail. Yeah. It's not ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox News. Like I've stated before when we first went over this story, this shows you how controlled our media is. It's literally We Are Change putting the pieces together and some tweets from WikiLeaks that we even know that this operation really took place.
Yeah, and the Daily Mail, of all people. Now, the Associated Press also wrote a similar piece, but as far as mainstream media coverage, especially the TV coverage, I haven't seen anything. I haven't seen a peep myself, and these are serious charges. These are charges of robbery, illegal restraint. I mean, this was brazen. This literally reads like it was out of a, what was it, Jack Bourne or Jason Bourne freaking movie, and it screams to me, in my opinion, botched intelligence agency raid, which of course hinders diplomacy. The first articles that came out about this was a group of dysenteries from North Korea itself, former Koreans and Koreans, but there's a lot more to the story that, of course, we're not being told here. And geopolitically, it's important to understand these stories, to understand what's happening on the world stage, because it is far more important than, of course, the gender bender science, transsexual bathroom arguments that are happening in the United States. This stuff is actually very, very important, and it's important to contemplate and look at in the larger sphere here of geopolitical news, which I believe should be a priority, but sadly is mainly just being swept underneath the rug. Jason, anything else you want to say about this specific story?
Well, I just kind of want to wrap it up with the geopolitics aspect of it, Luke, that you were just talking about and what we began with this Putin meeting with North Korea, with their relations actually getting better. We have to realize that the sea, is a big place for Russia, and they have a new submarine that they say can have nuclear-tipped drones that could invoke a tsunami. Pretty wild stuff. Well, when they have allies all over the coast trying to make North Korea, this could be a strategic military point. Remember, South Korea for the United States is hugely strategic. We have over 30,000 troops there. Think about if Poot gets really cozy with Kim. That is something we need to keep an eye on, but to try to put it in the manner that it's the authoritarian axis, just like it was the axis of evil. Remember when North Korea was part of the axis of evil, Luke? Well, everybody but Iran has been invaded. Yeah. North Korea and Iran are the only ones that didn't get invaded, and up until about 2 years ago, everybody was talking about North Korea, and still we're talking about Iran, bro.
Yeah, I don't see Saudi Arabia being described that way, or Afghanistan, or any other geopolitical country that the United States has an alliance with. They're not called authoritarian. Let's be honest here. There's a double standard here, and there's people standing like they're on the moral high ground. They are not. This new submarine is not a surprise. I mean, there's been many Russian military officials, government officials talking about the power to bring on a tsunami to any U.S. city. The tensions globally are very tense between Russia and the United States. You wouldn't know that by watching the mainstream media that was literally portraying Donald Trump making out with Vladimir Putin. You wouldn't understand that if you were watching that piece of trash garbage by the deep state intelligence agencies trying to convince you that, again, it was just absolutely crazy what we saw within the last 2 to 3 years of geopolitical coverage, because it was totally farthest from the truth. It does look like tensions in Ukraine will de-escalate, but as far as North Korea, it's a big strategic location. North Korea borders Russia. South Korea has a huge military installation, like you were talking about, by the United States. And of course, we're seeing a lot of hyperbolic talk since there's been countering back and forth between Russia, the United States, and China, which is even a bigger picture to bring up here that I could make, I could talk about for hours. But overall, to me, one last time, geopolitically, the world is fascinating. There's so much more to understand about what our government does internationally. And sadly, the discussion is not there. If you want more of that discussion, share this video. Incentivize this conversation by actually having it and engaging in it. Your guys' participation is more important than ever. Jason, unless you have anything else to say, I'm going to end it here. But just closing off here, guys, your support is more important than ever. Please go to wearechange.org/donate. Check out that website. Check out ways you could support and have this voices still continue, because sadly, not a lot of these voices exist, and they only exist because of you. And that's why. Love you guys. Stay tuned for more here on wearechange.org.